We're here at the Kennedy Greenhouse, and it's week 4 in the NFL, but before we get going, we really want to talk about the issue that has been running rampant so far this season, and that's the whole issue of the national flag and Donald Trump's comments, and whether or not players should have the right to kneel during the anthem and protest. So what are your thoughts on this, guys?
Well, I mean, I personally believe, it's their First Amendment right. They're not hurting anybody. I understand where both points are coming from. You know, people are saying that it is disrespectful to the military and stuff, and I get that. And another key issue that I keep hearing over and over again is that, like, if you don't like this country, get out. But for me, I feel like, to put an analogy, I feel like that's like having a car that has like a flat tire. You're not just gonna be like, oh, well, I have a flat tire. I'm just gonna not drive that car anymore.
Exactly.
You're gonna fix it and try and be able to drive that again. So that's the same way that I feel about this issue, because people, this country was based on change, and it wasn't a perfect country when we founded it, and it's still not a perfect country now. But they're trying, and I think that we need to just get back to the idea that change needs to be made. And although at the end of the day they are kneeling, which is a nice step in the right direction, but they need to go the route of Colin Kaepernick and donate money and donate your time and be more active in the in the fight against this. And I think that they need to just try and find a way to have a common ground, because it's sad to see all these people arguing at each other. Just when last week we had Hurricane Harvey and Irma, and everyone was all
everyone was brought together right there. And I mean, you bring up a very interesting point. Sorry if I cut you off there, by the way. You bring up a very interesting point in saying that these players do have a right to do what they are doing, and there's no reason that they should be held to a different standard if the president is not held to that same standard. Now, getting to that, Alyssa, what are your thoughts on this matter?
Agreed, Ben. I think we need to rewind a little bit to just definitely clarify what this whole thing is truly about. This started last year in a preseason game where Colin Kaepernick sat down and didn't stand during the national anthem. Then he continued to kneel throughout the rest of the games throughout the season. The reason that he did this was for police brutality, racial oppression, and racial inequality. And I think that a lot of people are confused on that, and I'm glad that we were able to clarify that, because I know that a lot of the media and a lot of the things that are coming out are kind of dwelling and not really showing that that is really what this is about. And I know that a lot of the players now are making that a lot clearer to the media, and I think that's very, very good. Even today, I know that the players are showing their feelings in a different way. Some of them aren't kneeling, some of them are standing, some of them are linking arms. I know some of the owners have come out and shown that they support this totally. I know that different coaches and staffs feel different ways, and they have that right to, and that's a great thing that we live in a country where we are able to share differences and different opinions and show them in different ways. Nonviolent, of course, which everything that has gone on in the NFL has been nonviolent protest, something to just kind of show we're linked in this together, we're in this as a whole, we're behind everyone on this, and we hope you're behind us on it as well. And once again, kneeling isn't the only way to show it. They show it in different ways. I know that the Saints, Brees tweeted out this morning, actually, he said that him and his team in the upcoming game, they would be kneeling prior to the national anthem this game, and that they will be standing and linking arms for the game this upcoming week.
I think that's the way that it should go. That way you get both protests, you get, everyone's doing the same thing. And one of the things that I kind of found a little interesting was that I saw, there were viral posts on Facebook and the various social media. So, like, soldiers were like, we did not, fight to have you kneel during the anthem, except for the fact that you kind of did. Because, it's a First Amendment right, and everyone has the right to peacefully protest. But I think that the Cowboys definitely had the best way of protesting, kneeling before the anthem and then locking arms during. And I really commend Jerry Jones for doing that. I never thought I'd see him do that.
Just to throw in there as well, I'm not sure if everyone knows, but the teams coming out from the national anthem is a fairly new thing. In 2009 is when it actually became required by the NFL that the players did not have to stand during the anthem, but they had to be on the field during the anthem. And from most of the that have been going on, they've been on the field. I know the Steelers last week, or like we were talking about, most of them were in the tunnel. And they even came back out and said that they would be doing something else different this week as well. But most of the teams have been on the field during the national anthem.
Yeah. Except for the Seahawks and the Titans. That was very cool to me to see, because both of those teams were playing each other. There was nobody on the field for the national anthem. I think that makes a statement. In my opinion, I mean, there's not really a correct way to protest. So when people are judging people for how exactly they're doing it, by not going out there, that's definitely making a statement. And you want to make a statement as a protest. So, I mean, I'm not judging people for not being out there. I'm not judging people for kneeling. They're trying to get their message out there. Now, I just don't think they necessarily deserve the amount of backlash that they've had. Yes, the national anthem is very important to a lot of people. It's very important to me. It was one of my favorite times before football games growing up, when you're just sitting there with your teammates, have your hand right here, and you sing along, and you're hoping to God no one gets hurt in that game. But like,
one of the things that, I mean, the national anthem can be very powerful. I mean, just to go back, I think maybe 4 years or so, during the Boston bombings in the marathon, the Bruins, they had, the singer of the national anthem had their the mic go out.
He's fantastic, by the way.
And then the whole arena, rallied around him, and they sang, and it was a beautiful moment. And I'm not ashamed that I did shed a tear. But
that's also awesome about hockey, because like a lot of places do that when they mess up, and I think that's a very powerful moment. I think what we're dancing around the issue of is that the national anthem is very important to a lot of people. It's very important to us, but it's also something that should be treated with respect. But with that being said, the players have a right to be treated with respect too, and they clearly were not. So they felt that they needed to step up and really use their podium that they have to display a message.
I think it's important for both sides to kind of walk a mile in each other's shoes. When you see what's going on in other countries and stuff, and then you see what we're arguing about, it just seems petty, and it's just, at the end of the day, we just need to find, common ground that, we can all just appreciate, and just go back to loving the game of football. As we all do.
I think something all of us can agree on is, regardless of your race, sports is something that brings all of us together in some kind of way. I'm very interested to see how these protests will progress in the future weeks of this season and in future seasons coming on to this. And I'm excited to also see how NFL fans, coaches, players continue to unify and either show their support or their opposition on this topic. And I think that this is something that we can all say will definitely be remembered, especially during this season.
This is something that, like, it's one of those moments that we learned growing up, and like, think about Rosa Parks. It's not at that same standard, but think about those protests. This is going to be something that, because it's not going to stop anytime soon, and there's a big problem with race in our country right now, and I'd be lying if I said there wasn't. But that wraps things up for our special opening segment this week. We just wanted to touch on this topic, as it's been a huge topic in the NFL. Now we're going to set it on over to Devin Gobeil with the injury update.
Thanks, guys, and I'm Devin Gobeil here with this week's NFL injury report. Let's start in Philadelphia this week, where we have some kind of sad news. Eagles running back Darren Sproles broke his arm and tore his ACL on the same play. He came out because his arm got kicked, and it looked like just a broken arm, but after they did some more looking into it, they saw he tore his ACL, and he's going to be out for the season. Darren Sproles has been thinking about retiring for some time now, so this could be the type of injury that ends his career. And he's the type of player I liked a lot. I know a lot of people like Darren Sproles because he was a hard worker. So seeing his career end this way, it's going to be sad, but sometimes that's what happens. Cardinals wide receiver John Brown practiced for the first time this week since he had his quad injury in the season opener. He's questionable to play this week, and even if he does play, he's going to be very limited. I expect the Cardinals are going to keep him out one more week and then let him get better, and then he'll come back week 5. Panthers wide receiver Kelvin Benjamin left last week's game due to an ankle injury. He returned to practice this week. He returned on Thursday and was a full participation. Coach Ron Rivera says he will play Sunday, so look for him to be out there. He might be a little limited with this injury, but he'll be out there against a very bad Patriots pass defense. Bengals wide receiver John Ross is going to miss this week's game again. A lot of people know John Ross because he was the one who broke the 40-time record, but he's only played one game so far this year. He hasn't been able to stay healthy, and he hasn't been able to show off what he can do against NFL talent. Bengals tight end Tyler Eifert is going to miss multiple weeks. He is suffering from a back injury last week, and he missed last week's game, and they came out this week that he's going to miss a few weeks. He had the same back injury last year. It required surgery. He's not going to need surgery this year, but he is going to be out for a while. Browns defensive end and #1 overall pick Myles Garrett practiced for the first time this week. He had a high ankle sprain, of course, that he suffered during the preseason, and he's been slowly making his way back. Now, he's probably not going to play this week, but a Week 5 return does look like a very real possibility. Cowboys star linebacker Sean Lee left Monday's game with a hamstring injury. There's a lot of uncertainty around his injury. He's probably going to come down to a game-time decision. The Cowboys could really use him. He's a big threat in the middle of the field. Chargers rookie wide receiver Mike Williams has yet to play a game this year because he's also suffered an injury during the preseason. It was a back injury. He was limited in practice this week, returning. And again, he, just like Myles Garrett, probably won't play this week, but Week 5 looks like a very good possibility for him to make his NFL debut. Chargers running back Melvin Gordon injured his knee during last week's game. He came back in, but he was very limited. He wasn't able to do much when he came back in, and the Chargers limited him in practice this week. Now, the limit in practice looks like it was just a precautionary action, and he'll be able to come out this week, and he will be playing. Rams wide receiver Sammy Watkins went through concussion protocol after it was believed he suffered a concussion after his second touchdown during last week's game. He had a very good game last week, and he looked very good, and he's been good for the Rams. He's passed through concussion protocol, though, and it looks like he will play, so expect him to be out there. Look for him to build on last week's big game and show what he can do. Vikings quarterback Sam Bradford is out again. Mike Zimmer has said he's feeling better, but he just isn't ready to play. The problem with Sam Bradford is there's a lot of questions, and it's very confusing with what's going on with him. It's a knee injury he's suffering from. MRIs have revealed there's no structural damage, but they said he might only be out 1 week. They said he might not be out at all, and he's been out a couple weeks now, really. It's confusing to know when he's going to be back. Colts quarterback Andrew Luck didn't even practice this week. He's also someone with a lot of questions, and the earliest they think he's going to be able to come back is November, and even that would be pushing it. So Andrew Luck, he's had trouble really his whole career with Indianapolis. Hopefully he's able to push through it and come out and be the quarterback everyone knew he could be coming out of college. Giants right end Olivier Vernon suffered an ankle injury this week. The MRI came back negative, and he's going to be a game-time decision. They're going to need him because the Giants' offense hasn't been able to do much, so they're going to need all their defensive pieces to be there in order to win. Raiders wide receiver Michael Crabtree left the game last week with a chest injury. He was limited in practice, but the injury is considered to be minor, and he should play. The Raiders are going to need him because Amari Cooper has not been able to hold on to the ball this year. So if you're missing one receiver and one receiver can't catch the ball, you're going to have a lot of trouble. Steelers linebacker T.J. Watt missed last week's game with a groin injury. He was a game-time decision at that time, and he was a full participant in practice this week. So I would expect him to play. He should be out there. He's looked very good as a rookie linebacker. Seahawks wide receiver Doug Baldwin left last week's game with a groin injury. He hasn't practiced at all this week, but Pete Carroll says he fully expects him to play. He's probably going to come down to a game-time decision, and really it's just going to come down to how Baldwin is feeling before the game starts. The Buccaneers defense is going to be struggling this week. They're going to be missing a couple stars. Linebacker Quan Alexander is going to be out again this week. He suffered from a hamstring and missed last week's game. Safety T.J. Ward left Sunday's game with a hip injury, and he's doubtful to play. Linebacker Levante David suffered a sprained ankle and is doubtful. And defensive tackle Gerald McCoy is questionable with an ankle injury. They're going to need it. They're going to need their defense back. They might not need them this week. They might sit a couple of guys because the Giants' offense is very bad. They can probably get away with a few guys sitting. So look to see what they do to see if they go the precautionary way or if they decide to play their players. Thanks. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Devin. Now we get to my favorite part of the show with our predict segment. Me and Joe both did okay last week. Not great. We both went 3-2. We're 9-6 on the season, so we're still tied.
Solid record, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad.
Not too shabby.
It's over 500. That's more than a lot of these football teams can say.
Yeah.
And Trey went a whopping not 5-0. That would have been cool. He almost did. He went 4-1 in his debut. So, and now we have Kayla making her first predictions appearance, and she's probably going to do better than all of us. But
I am.
all right, the first game we're going to talk about is the rivalry game between Pittsburgh and Baltimore. This is in Maryland. So who do you guys think are going to win?
Well, as we all know, this is one of the most fierce rivalries in all of the NFL. It seems like every year it's just a tough battle. And both these teams actually lost last week. Baltimore got smacked by Jacksonville across the pond, and then Pittsburgh lost a shocking game to the Bears. And so I think Baltimore, I've never been very high on Baltimore. I think Pittsburgh, while they didn't look very good at times, they did take that game to overtime, and I think just personnel-wise, they're a stronger team. So I think Pittsburgh, and as usual, it'll be a close game. So,
how about you, Keith?
I gotta give this one to the Steelers. I agree with you, Joe. I am not big on Baltimore. I never have enough confidence in them to pick them for a win, honestly.
Wow.
And I just don't think that after getting smacked around by Blake Bortles that you can come back and beat Big Ben and the Steelers. I just don't see it happening.
I mean, they were playing in London. Give them a little bit of slack. Maybe they didn't just wake up or something. It's a long
you think
flight.
Jacksonville's got the London.
Well, okay, you guys are sleeping on. They do. They play there every year, though. By the way. Anyway, but I'm getting off topic. But I mean, Pittsburgh just lost to Chicago. Chicago's awful. I mean, Chicago's worse than Jacksonville. And yes, I can't believe I'm saying a team's actually worse than Jacksonville now, but they're worse than Jacksonville. I think Baltimore's going to show up. They always show up against the Steelers. I think both teams will show up, and it's going to be another close game, and it's at Baltimore. So I'm giving the edge to Baltimore, and I'm picking the Ravens. And so hopefully I'm right, because if I'm not, I'll be already starting 0-1 this week. Now the next game we have is another divisional matchup between two teams that are playing very well. It's Houston playing Tennessee in NRG Stadium. I think that's what it's called. Might be Reliant. I could be wrong. But anyway, they're playing in Houston, and Houston's 1-2, but they've looked very good. They should have won last week against New England. And Marcus Mariota is killing it right now in Tennessee. So who do you guys think is going to win that one?
I'm going to have to take Tennessee on this one. I don't think that the Texans have been strong, consistent enough to really in such a rivalry game. I don't think that they could come out on top in this one.
Yeah, same. I've been very impressed with Marcus Mariota and Deshaun Watson. I will give him credit; he has played well. They almost beat the Patriots in Foxborough last week. Yeah. But I think just the Titans are a little bit more consistent at this point, and in such a big game like this, I think they'll have that edge.
All right. Well, again, I disagree with you. I think Houston's going to win this. This one, they're at home. Tennessee's a great team. Don't get me wrong. I just have more faith in Houston's defense than I do in Tennessee's defense. So I think it's going to be a very competitive game. It'll be fun to watch. We won't be able to watch it because we live in South Carolina, but it's going to be very interesting. Now we got the Carolina Panthers as they're making the trip all the way up to Foxborough to play New England. New England hasn't played too well at home so far this year, but Carolina hasn't really looked good so far this year at all, but they're 2-1. So, Joe, who do you think is going to win this one?
Yeah, I think New England, they're a much better team right now. Obviously, the Panthers did not play well at all last week, and even before that against the Bills, they were still, their offense couldn't get anything going. And one of their offensive linemen just announced a few hours ago isn't going to be playing for this game for an already depleted offensive line. And so, as much as we all hate to hear it, but I think New England is going to take this game just of pure talent.
All right. What about you, Kayla?
Yeah, I hate picking the Patriots, but I haven't watched a 9-6 game since the Jets played the Rams last year, and that doesn't bode well for the Panthers. So I'm going to have to say that in Foxborough, they don't stand a chance.
Yeah, I'm not going out of the box on this one. I'm picking New England as well. I'm sorry to all you Panthers fans out there. I do love some of the parts you have going, but like Joe said, you don't have that much of an offensive line. Your defense has looked great, but you haven't been able to put the ball in the back of the end zone. I think New England's going to run away with this one by 14, 15, 21 points, something like that. Next up, we got another divisional matchup as Oakland is traveling all the way to Mile High Stadium to play Denver. This game's always close. Both teams have great defenses. They have offenses that can score. I mean, Oakland couldn't score last week, but they'll probably be able to score this week. It's going to be a great game. I really haven't made up my mind who I'm going to pick, so I'm going to throw it to one of you guys. Who do you guys think is going to win?
I think it's going to be the Raiders this time. I don't have that much confidence in Trevor Siemian. I know he's had a good season as of now, but I don't think that he's like the right answer for Denver necessarily, and like I don't think that he can hold up against like Derek Carr. I don't think it's really comparison like worthy.
All right, cool. What about you?
Yeah, I love Denver's defense. They consistently have one of the best defensive units in the league, but like Kayla said, I think it's going to come down to Trevor Siemian. I just think the quality of his play has just not been very impressive, and I don't think that's going to be enough to beat the Oakland Raiders with all the weapons they do have. So they will bounce back from a tough loss last week and get the win in Denver.
Ooh, I really don't know about this one because both teams, there's an argument, it's an easy argument for both teams on how you're going to pick. Oakland looked awful last week. Hopefully, they could rebound. I think they'll play better. But to be quite honest, they're playing a defense that is like 5 times better than the defense they played last week. And I'm a Redskins fan. I can say that. I'm very proud of the way the Redskins played. But Denver's defense is a whole different animal. And if Denver's defense plays like it has so far this year, I think Denver will show up and rebound from last week's tough performance in Buffalo. So I think Denver is going to take this one in another close game. But yeah, so the final game we're going to talk about is the Washington Redskins traveling all the way to Arrowhead to play the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday night. It's another primetime game for the Redskins. So Joe, I wonder who you're possibly picking this one.
Yeah, probably no surprise, but Kansas City.
Yep.
And I think Washington did play very well last week. I was pleasantly surprised at how well they did play. But Kansas City is one of the hotter teams in the league right now. And Washington, while their defense did play very well last week, I just don't think going to Arrowhead this week on a Monday night game, I think just that atmosphere and the talent they do have just won't be enough.
All right, how about you, Kayla?
Yeah, Arrowhead, loudest stadium in the NFL. I don't think that the Redskins can continue their lucky streak.
Ooh.
Sorry to call it that. But I do think that Kansas City's just been far too explosive for the Redskins to really stop them. And it's not just because I have Travis Kelce on my fantasy team, holding it up every week.
Who she's praying, except not the first week. She was really mad at him. But, I mean, it's going to be a close game, to be quite honest. I think the amount of weapons Kansas City has is insane. But I do think if the Redskins play like they did last week on defense, they will be able to combat that a decent amount. It's all going to come up to Kirk Cousins, and I went out on a limb last week, said the Redskins were going to win. I'm going to do it again and see if it holds up. I have the Redskins taking this one just to be different from you guys, and because I picked my team last week in a game they probably shouldn't have won, and they won. So let's see if that keeps on going. But that wraps things up for our pick segment. Now we're going to send it on over to Jack and Carter for the fantasy football update.
Hey guys, I'm Jack Taylor alongside Carter Furr this week to talk about your fantasy lineups for week 4. Like I said, the NFL has been kind of crazy this season. A lot of different matchups and a lot of different outcomes, like the Bears beating the Steelers, the Jets getting a win.
Yep.
Just a lot of different things going on in the NFL. So we're going to try to help you as you set your fantasy lineup this week.
That's right.
First off, I think that this game in London is going to be a shootout. It's the Saints and the Dolphins, both very high-powered offenses with kind of lacking defenses.
Yeah.
The Saints did shut down the Panthers pretty well, but the Dolphins have a way more put-together offense. So I think that any wide receiver or Jay Ajayi, the Saints have a little bit better of a run defense, but that was their one weakness last week. So Jay Ajayi, Devontae Parker, Jarvis Landry, I think that they're going to put up a good amount of points against the Saints cornerbacks. And then on the other side, Drew Brees, he gets a lot of points regardless of who he's playing or what he's doing. So the Dolphins don't have a very strong defensive back core group. So I think it's going to be a shootout from both sides.
Absolutely agree. And if you're looking at that New Orleans run attack, definitely I'd say go with Mark Ingram. Of the 3 they've got, I'd stay away from Adrian Peterson. I'm not sure how I feel about him. He has not gotten much usage this year.
He has not, and I think he's disappointed about that. But other than that, when it comes to running attack, I think another team that you could easily, I've had this issue every week, is whether or not to start DeMarco Murray or Derrick Henry for the Titans.
Right.
They're playing the Texans this week, who do have one of the better front sevens in the NFL, but against the Jaguars week 1, they faltered when they had to take on Leonard Fournette.
That's
right.
So
I think that both with that double-edged sword of DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry, I think that the Titans' running offense is going to just run all over, for lack of better words, the Texans' defense.
I think you're exactly right. Another running back cluster that I could see having one potential play is definitely Chris Carson in Seattle. I think they signed Eddie Lacy. I think Chris Carson has actually definitely emerged as the go-to guy. He's gotten, I think, 10-plus touches in their last 2 weeks, clearly taking over that lead bell cow role. So if he's available in your league, which he probably is, a small name, definitely I'd say go ahead and pick him up. He might be worth a start.
I could see that very well. Some other running backs that you could think of, obviously, with the matchup coming up from Kansas City and the Redskins, both teams that have pretty dominant running backs. And the Redskins have a fairly good defensive back group, and they were able to shut down the Raiders for the most part. So I think that Kareem Hunt's going to get, I mean, obviously he would get it already, so that's not like a sleeper pick. But look for him to put up a lot more points again this week, as well as on the other side, Chris Thompson.
I think you're exactly right. I think those are both guys that have shown they can explode, both top 3 fantasy guys in most formats, in yardage, in points, in touchdowns. They've each gotten a lot of use. I think definitely those could be guys that you could look at as sell high kind of guys. Their yards per carry and yards after the catch, especially, they're both pass catching backs, are both insane. I think you might see a little bit of regression to the mean there with both of them at some point in the season. They're both top 3 guys at this point. But sell high value for both of them, as neither of them should be available in your league. And if they are, snap them both up, especially Chris Thompson.
Exactly. And then, like I said, with coming up with some wide receivers, I think that obviously Panthers showed that they weren't doing too hot last week. I don't think Christian McCaffrey would be available, but he's going to be the workhorse for that Panthers offense with Greg Olsen being out, Kelvin Benjamin looking bad, and then Curtis Samuel is now out this week too. Other than that, if he is available, I'd pick him up. Devin Funchess, as I think he's shown promise in his last 2 years with Carolina, and he's never really broken out as the main target because of who he's had around him. I think this year is going to be that year where he can really make a huge impact.
I definitely agree. He and McCaffrey are going to carry most of the load this week for Carolina, it looks like. Not sure how I feel about Cam Newton as a star. What do you think, Mr. Panthers fan?
I wouldn't start him this week. He's not looking like himself. I don't know if it's a mindset or if it's a physical thing, but ever since the Super Bowl a year or two ago, he has not been his same self. He showed glimpses of it in his scrambling out of the pocket and with some of his throws, but even after getting sacked multiple times, and obviously that's going to hurt any quarterback, he's just not looked up to snuff. So I would not start Cam Newton for quarterback. I would start Tom Brady because, like I said, he's going to eviscerate the Panthers.
He's a must-start guy in pretty much all matchups, but the Panthers, definitely.
Exactly.
I think he's going to take them over.
With our lacking secondary, he's going to just throw all over the Panthers.
I think you're exactly right.
Another thing, so with the Panthers defense, you wouldn't want to start them either. Some defenses you don't want to start also are the Buccaneers defense. They're taking on the Giants this week, who haven't been so explosive on offense, but the Buccaneers are playing without Levante David. He is out this week, and then Quan Alexander and TJ Ward are both listed as questionable.
Right.
So their defense is hurting, and I think it'll be a big week for Odell Beckham and the Giants offense.
Yep, and I'll say with that, if that Buccaneers defense does not play up to their full standard, expect a shootout there. Expect maybe Mike Evans, maybe Deshaun Jackson to get a lot of catches, a lot of targets especially, in what could turn into a total shootout between receiving weapons like OBJ on one side, Mike Evans on the other. Could be big games. Definitely look at Jameis as a starter, maybe a streaming option in your league.
Definitely. And then another defense I said you didn't want to start already, the Texans is going to take on this offensive juggernaut that is the Titans. They're looking very good this week, going off of that huge win against Seattle. And then so some defenses you could start. I'd say the Jaguars are looking really nice this year, and that's weird to say, but their defense has played. I've seen certain media outlets call them the new Legion of Boom, which is I think a little bit premature, but who knows? They're taking on the Jets, so they should be able to bring up a good amount of points off of turnovers or just lack of points from the Jets.
They certainly do have a lot of young talent. I really like watching them play. I think they're explosive, which is odd to say as a defense, but they have shown that big playmaking ability.
Exactly. Well, that's all from us here on the Fantasy Lineup. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks so much.
Thank you guys for giving us some insight in the fantasy world this week. I'm definitely going to listen to some of your advice and start some of those players. But now we're going to get into our rapid fire segment. And the first question I got for you guys is, Eli Manning and the Giants offense came to life in the fourth last week. Will they continue this success against the Bucs?
See, maybe I'm a little biased. I'm not a big Brandon Marshall fan anymore since he abandoned my Jets.
Yep.
But I don't think either way that they can really keep up with forward progress, because as long as your O-line is as bad as it is, I mean, if Eli's running for his life on every play, I don't really see how they can start to be productive.
Exactly. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, I'm with Kayla as well. Just that O-line isn't going to be enough, and then I think that with the Buccaneers and Jameis Winston, I think they'll pull out a close one.
See, I think that the Giants' offense is going to show up. It's whether or not their defense does, because like Devin said earlier in the show, they have a lot of injuries. That defense, I think they're Brandon Marshall and all those wide receivers they have are going to run all over that team. But with almost every team having some sort of national anthem protest now, is it right that Colin Kaepernick still doesn't have a job?
I think that the problem I think Kaepernick should have a job. That's my personal opinion, just based on his football playing ability.
Yes.
That's why you hire somebody. But I think the issue in this current climate in the NFL is that hiring Kaepernick is kind of saying we are the team that backs all of this. And I think that it's become a separate issue of his football playing abilities because while he could be on some teams a starter, I know the Jets are looking, but he could be a very good backup for most NFL teams. And I think that the problem is that hiring him is more of taking a political stance versus taking the player at this point.
What about you, Joe?
I'm kind of the same way, where if just given the current events of the past 6 days, if a team, let's say the Jets, for example, if they were to all of a sudden sign Colin Kaepernick, you have this look of, oh, look, we're very progressive, we're all for everything that's been going on, and so I just think if they did it now, it would just look kind of like a stunt.
It's definitely the problem. You guys touched on it both. The problem is it's become more of a PR and a political issue than an issue about football. Now, moving on, the Raiders' offense looked non-existent against my Skins. That was awesome. Will they have an equally poor performance against that Denver defense?
Like I said, I took Oakland in this game. I do think that they can pull out a win here. But the Denver defense will be a huge challenge for them. It's not that I don't think that will be difficult. It's more of just I think that's going to be the weakness in the Broncos offense that is going to lend Oakland those points and those opportunities.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think the Denver defense is going to make some plays, and I did pick Oakland, but they will definitely they still won't be, I'd say, a fantastic offense, but I think it will be enough because of Denver's offense to get out the win.
All right, now Deshaun Watson's looked incredibly good in the first couple weeks. Do you think will Deshaun Watson win the Rookie of the Year? Yes or no?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I'm just not a Deshaun Watson fan because I'm biased.
We're all biased, I know.
I don't think that he has been noteworthy to the point where I would be like, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's still more than enough time for another rookie to make their case. And I don't see how Kareem Hunt wouldn't be in that conversation. Yeah. I would see him above Deshaun Watson at this point.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a top candidate. And while he has played well, he hasn't had maybe a single come out game. Yes, he's played well against the Patriots. Yes, he's had all these good games, but there hasn't been one single moment where it just makes you stop and say, wow, he absolutely deserves it.
Hey, Joe.
No Dak.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe, that moment's going to be this week against Tennessee because I picked them to win. But I think that he's going to win the Rookie of the Year. I'll say it now. Deshaun Watson will be your Offensive Rookie of the Year winner at the end of the season. He's just too good on offense, and I think they're going to really he's going to really bring that team to be able to eventually win that division. Now, I could be way out there, but who knows. Now, next up, will Blake Bortles continue his recent success against the Jets this week?
Oh, I see everyone's looking at me. I don't think that Blake Bortles is suddenly going to be a good quarterback. I think that was a complete fluke. And I don't know if it's the London magic that you seem to... Yeah, I don't think that Blake Bortles is going to keep being great. I think that the Jets actually have a pretty decent defense. And I'm not just saying
how many points did the Raiders score when we were at the
I believe that was 45. But anyway, no, the Jets had a great game last week.
They did.
And they really shut down Jay Cutler. Not saying
that's
too difficult, but I don't think that Blake Bortles is light years ahead of Jay Cutler or anything. I think that it's pretty even, honestly, and I don't think that he is going to be some breakout star now that he had one good game. So.
Yeah. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, well, as impressive as Jacksonville looked last week against Baltimore, these teams aren't very good. They're still not very good. And even though they both had good wins, the Jets surprisingly won a game because I didn't go 0-16.
And I said they were going to win, so ha.
Jet up.
But yeah, I think he could do enough to win this game, but that doesn't translate into it being a very good game for him.
I think he's going to continue his success. I don't think that he's going to necessarily be astronomically good because he's not the best quarterback in the world. He's all right. But I do think he's going to perform well against the Jets, and I have the Jaguars winning that game purely because they played the Ravens defense, and the Ravens defense was supposed to be really, really good. They had been shutting down teams, and maybe the Ravens just were sleepy or something, but they did not show up. But moving on, the Seahawks have also gotten off to a slow start this season, like the Jets. Should they be worried?
Yeah, I think they should. I don't think that they're on top of the world like they were for a few years in a row. I think that there's a lot of solid competition in their division, and it's not going to be easy for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Seahawks, it's getting, I know we said for the first few weeks, it's the beginning of the season, they'll have time.
Yeah.
But you can't say that for 4 weeks in a row. There has to be a time where you have to seriously talk about how the Seahawks are not what they used to be back 4 years ago.
The league has caught up to them.
Yeah,
so to
exactly. They're not. There's not sneaking up on anybody anymore.
That being said, they have an easy matchup this week. They should win. I think it's the Sunday night game against the Colts. So hopefully for 1 week we'll be able to say, wow, they looked phenomenal. Also, Justin Timberlake seems to be the front runner for the Super Bowl halftime show. Is that a good choice?
I mean, actually, we taught that in our class.
Did you?
Professor O'Malley. Shout out. But one of the things I remember we were talking about is that the Super Bowl obviously has a target audience, and then that target audience most likely isn't going to watch the halftime show.
Yeah.
That's just not what they're interested in. And so they bring in acts like Justin Timberlake or Lady Gaga or Beyonce or whoever. Yeah, where just people like that, where it targets a different target, or it goes towards a different target audience. And I think that's what they get into this year with Timberlake.
Same with commercials in that argument. What about you? What do you think?
I don't really care who the halftime show is, as long as the Patriots aren't one of the teams that's in the game.
That's very true. Very true.
Do y'all think there's going to be another infamous wardrobe malfunction? Because I can't remember what year that was, 04 or 03, where JT accidentally made everybody in the audience see. Who was it? Janet Jackson, I think.
There definitely was. It definitely made it. It definitely made it more interesting. We'll leave it at that. But and I think, I was just thinking about this the other day because I know we had talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
Just imagine. Because when it happened back in 03, 04, it was a big deal without social media. Imagine now with Twitter and everything.
It'd be a meme for a year.
Yeah, how big that would blow up to.
Yeah, actually now the halftime show has to be on a 5-second delay because they showed, I can't remember the amount of audience, but that whole audience, pretty much the whole U.S. got to see that right there. So now, that is on a 5-second delay. So if anything crazy happens, we sadly won't be able to see it. The last thing that I'm going to ask is, I know you guys don't really care that much about the halftime performance, but if you could have one artist perform at halftime, who would it be?
Oh gosh.
Ooh, on the spot.
This is a tough one.
Taylor Swift.
No, not Taylor Swift. Adam Levine.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
Gee, I wonder why. All right, what about you?
Ooh. Just one one. If I could pick
it can be anybody. It can be anybody.
Anybody in the world.
Yep.
Ooh. Don't know.
All right,
I'm
a guy who I like all types of music, so I can think of a bunch of people.
I'm the same way. I think I would go with Ben Platt, Dear Evan Hansen. No, or I'd go with Blake Shelton, the other guy from The Voice, just because I love Blake Shelton and I think he'd kill it. But
if Darius Rucker wants to go, let's go with me.
We're a little biased.
A little biased, but it's fine.
Come have another concert here, please. I know you probably will. But anyway, that wraps things up for this week's NFL show. Hope you enjoy all the games and have a good week. I'm Ben Parsons.
I'm Kayla Pace.
I'm Joe McLean.
Have a good week.